I'm Cherrill Spencer with the Peninsula Palo Alto branch of the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom. We are called WILPF for short, and I'm happy to be here with my WILPF sisters, Judy Adams from my branch and MacGregor Eddy from the Monterey branch of WILPF. WILPF has been working against war and for disarmament since 1915. Yes, that's 109 years, and we see the intercontinental ballistic missiles, ICBMs, as the most dangerous weapons we have ever worked to be abolished. Ballistic missiles are powered initially by a rocket, and then it's up in the air, and then it just goes an unpowered trajectory that arches upwards, and then the missile comes down towards its target. There's electronics in it that is keeping it on target. The target, of course, is an enemy city, for example. The ICBMs that are launched from this Vandenberg Space Force Base, where we are standing this afternoon, are one of these types of nuclear weapons. They have nuclear weapons in the tips of the missiles, one or maybe three, and each one is worth 335 kilotons. Take 3 of them and you have a destructive force which is 50 times the destructive force that the one bomb on Hiroshima exerted. And you know 125,000 people were killed in Hiroshima. That was 79 years ago. Therefore we call ICBMs weapons of mass destruction, because the United States has about 400 of them, sitting in underground silos in Colorado, Montana, Nebraska, North Dakota and Wyoming, and they are ready to be launched towards an enemy such as Russia. Now, if our incoming missile detection system, part of which is in the Hawaiian Islands, detects some enemy ICBMs hurtling towards us, our president has just a few minutes to decide whether to launch some or all of our 400 ICBMs. We need to get them in the air before the enemy ICBM arrives at the silo, because the enemy ICBMs know exactly where the silos are. It's well advertised. So we want to get our bombs in the air before theirs arrive. Unfortunately, theirs will still go off when they get to Dakota, North Dakota or Colorado, and the people who live there are going to be blown to smithereens, okay? So if our president should receive a false alarm, and he sends off the ICBMs without knowing it was a false alarm, there's no calling them back. They are on their way. So we will end up with multiple nuclear weapons exploding all over Russia and all over the Midwest. The ICBM that will be launched here tonight, to check that the missile part of it still works, is quite old. And some politicians in Congress have asked that all 400 of the old missiles be replaced by a new missile which they are calling the Sentinel. The original cost of that program was nearly $300 billion. That's an awful lot of money. Now the estimate's up to $315 billion, and some acquisition costs have increased 37% in the last 2 years. So that has triggered a re-evaluation of the program, because there is an act called the Nunn-McCurdy Act. So the Pentagon is supposed to be looking into this, and they are going to issue a report in the next few days about are they going to proceed with the Sentinel program or not. But do we really need 3 different delivery systems? We have submarines that can launch ballistic missiles, and we have bombers that can drop them. Our enemies don't know where the submarines are or where our planes are, okay? But they do know where the ICBMs are in Wyoming and North Dakota. So the military and generals have said, we really don't want these ICBMs. They're redundant and they are dangerous. Okay, they're dangerous to the world as a whole. So how are they sold to the American public? Well, they're sold as a jobs program. So Northrop Grumman, for example, promised 10,000 jobs from the program. But research shows that healthcare, non-fossil fuel energy, infrastructure and education are all more effective at creating jobs given comparable levels of government investment. So the land-based ICBMs in the Midwest of our country are sitting ducks, and they make the US more vulnerable to a nuclear attack, not less. And what we have is a situation now in Ukraine where just the other day President Biden said we are going to give missiles to Ukraine, and they're going to be allowed to lob the missiles into Russia, because just along the border there are their radar systems that will detect missiles incoming. So we have already destroyed some of those missile systems, the radar detecting systems. So we've already provocated President Putin a great deal, you know, and now we are pushing more of his buttons. And we don't know how many more red lines he's going to let us cross before he has, as you all know, threatened that he will use nuclear weapons if he feels the sovereignty of Russia is being attacked. So he would be using ICBMs similar to the one that will be tested here tonight on the early morning of the 6th of June 2024 is when the next launch will be. Some of us have come for this afternoon vigil. We thank the Catholic Guadalupe Catholic workers for hosting us this afternoon, for standing on this corner so that the people going in and out of the Space Force Base can see you here and see us here today. And so I thank you very much, everybody who was here today, and I am kind of looking forward, but not really looking forward to seeing the test launch tonight. Thank you very much.
Remind people about Timon Wallace's book, which is Warheads to Windmills. And I'm getting the time signal. So the back is, silos are for corn, not for death. Thank you.
I'm Judy Talaugon, Chumash from California, from right here in this region. This is my people are the traditional owners of this land. And Kot Lora and his wife and many people back in the, I don't know, people were here in the 70s and 60s when we marched on this place, okay? So it's not without our involvement in the resistance. Now, one of the elements that I think has been a wonderful piece when you invite me, or that I take the time to come on out, because I do live in the north, but what an amazing crowd I found myself in the presence of. Some of the biggest, hardest hitters, prisonable events, strategists, the wisdom that we don't quite have right now, but is being requested. I teach a seminar at Cal, and it's about the movement, and it's about where we are today and what we could have done all along the way. Why not? It's not a retrospect, it's a critique. So having indigenous representation is an amazing piece. So I'm going to give you a little bit today that I am one of the traditional owners. We're still participating in the tribe. My father's still a tribal elder. I'm an elder now. So I often use the 8 points of genocide denialism in America. We want to kind of hold that today. This is oftentimes why we've come this far, 70 years. And people still don't realize that dying from bombs, nuclear holocaust, is not inevitable. Huh? That dying from war is not inevitable. And we have watched our very own population be programmed and indoctrinated to believe this system of punitive, of punity, of hatred, and of genocide denialism. Okay, we're right in the country, my friends. So I guess I'm going to run through it really quite. These are points that are used in genocide scholarship in Southern California. A lot of my students are genocide scholars, and I am one by default. So, terras nullius, they didn't exist, my people. The right to take land from an indigenous population. If they did, they weren't here. And that would be terras nullius. If they were, they didn't use the land. Doctrine of Discovery, 1992, a campaign that I worked hard on, and we're going to resurrect that conversation. If they did, they lost it. Right of conquest. Really, my loves, you must put these into your daily practice of prayers. By no fault have people been indoctrinated into these concepts and these belief systems, even as spiritual people. Even in our spiritual reality, we seem to want to just deny some of this. And I'm standing right before you. What I see in Gaza is what I see right here. It is no different. If you've not seen a Cree child die of starvation, then that would be your fault as an American. You need to know this. It happens now, today, in the 2024. If they didn't, it doesn't matter anymore if we lost it, and that Westphalian sovereignty. If it does exist, we need to move on. Liberalism. If we can't, we are you. Okay, so this is, I want to just say that the 8 points that I'm rattling off are measures of elimination of indigenous peoples. The last one is self-indigenizing, something that we are faced with on campus communities and other places where people self-indigenize and they claim to be indigenous and they take up space as doctorates, as authors, you know, and as formative leaders in our community with Native people as well, claim indigenous tribes. And of all the industries, the education the academy doesn't really follow up, so it's up to us Native people to really push and scrutinize. I am not in Native American Studies at Cal. I'm in Latino Studies, because there is a fraud in Indian Studies there, and they need to replace that person. So, you know, honestly, I try not to. I've been out there with Scott at Vegas. We've walked that long peace walk, and I've been doing this all of my life, and I never see where it is not intersected. And I want to say that it was us in the North, many of us, Luke Cole, who's no longer with us, Southwest Organizing Committee, I know we've got stuff about them, us. We as Americans in the North, as activists, have gone to the Global South and brought that information back. We've gone to Jeju, we've gone to places where Americans don't go, and we bring that information back and we educate people. That's how dogged we have to be, obviously. So anyway, I've got nothing but a tremendous team of young mentors surrounding and flanking me, and I say that is God's blessing, because, hey, if I was a really crappy human being, I probably would never have that amazing entourage of people who just want to know. They want to know what you know, what MacGregor can tell us before these happen, what Dennis can impart to my students, but what it takes to do prisonable stuff, but, you know, stand out here with us today. Thank you. I want to thank those that have gone beyond before us, Father Louis, and David Krieger, who read poetry after these actions, and of course Daniel. We were arrested. Yes, please.
Judy was arrested here with Daniel Ellsberg, February 25th, 2012, along with 14 other people, and it's a tribute to how powerful this can be.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. Might be good, might be bad. I'm Dave Patterson. I'm the president of the San Diego Veterans for Peace. and I wanted to be here to witness this launch myself. I'm an Air Force veteran, but I was never around big missiles like this. This is an opinion piece, not necessarily the words of Veterans for Peace. But we at Veterans for Peace demand that the U.S. government adhere to its own laws. And those laws adopted by international treaties regarding sending weapons to Israel.
Yes.
How is it possible that our nation claims to be the leader of the free world can blindly arm Israel after they have so brazenly killed tens of thousands of innocent Palestinian civilians and so many children that only seek to live and breathe? Now the Israelis are starving the population of Gaza, apparently because they can, with the help of the almighty United States of America. And somehow the Israelis think that such actions will bring them peace. I think not. We at Veterans for Peace are not for Israel, Hamas, or any other group, but instead for peace in any way it can happen. And we can have no doubt that sending weapons to Israel is not the way. I say if the Israelis want to commit genocide, they need to do it without the support of our nation, our weapons, and our money. Quoting Jimmy Carter, "We cannot be both the world's champion of peace and the world's leading supplier of weapons of war." I think that instead of sending Israel weapons, we should be sanctioning governments that do not send them weapons. And then there's the chance that without the weapons, the Israelis will be forced to live peacefully with their neighbors. In the case of Gaza, Israel has killed over 35,000 Palestinians, 2/3 of which are women and children, using U.S. weapons. It's hard to believe that a pass is given by our government and the press to what is clearly genocide against the Palestinian people. That number includes 14,000 children killed, 12,000 wounded, and thousands more are missing. This according to UNICEF. The Biden administration likes to frame the genocide as supporting Israel's right to defend itself. However, shooting caged animals is illegal in most parts of the world, and people would be up in arms if that were in the news. However, try and get the nation excited about 35,000 human beings caged up in Gaza and executed by the Israeli government. We at Veterans for Peace are convinced that the American State Department is in violation of at least 5 laws that make it a crime to send weapons to countries where those weapons will be used to commit genocide, crimes against humanity, and/or breach the Geneva Conventions. First, Article 2 of the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide clearly defines what genocide is. The 5 laws are the Conventional Arms Transfer Policy, which prohibits U.S. weapon transfers when it's likely that they will be used to commit genocide, crimes against humanity. The Foreign Assistance Act, relating to infrastructure and the delaying of aid shipments. The U.S. War Crimes Act, which forbids grave breaches of the Geneva Conventions, including willful killing, torture, or inhumane treatment. The Leahy Law, which prohibits the U.S. government from using funds for assistance to units of the foreign security forces where there is credible information implicating that unit in the commission of gross violations of human rights. And lastly, the Genocide Convention Implementation Act, which provides for criminal penalties for individuals who commit or incite others to commit genocide. You can read more specifics on those laws at veteransforpeace.org. With all these charges in mind, we at Veterans for Peace have delivered a petition to the U.S. State Department Inspector General, demanding that those involved are investigated for breaking the law. However, to date, the State Department has refused to respond, while they and the White House have downplayed our charges and the charges of many others around the world. There was some movement towards sanctions being levied, but we need to back up what we say with what we do. We also hand-delivered the same petition to all our congressional representatives in San Diego County and received nothing but what I call cowardly silence. The fact that we haven't heard back from the State Department nor Congress makes them all complicit in genocide, in my mind. We demand that our government stop sending weapons to Israel while expecting them to find a lasting peace with the Palestinian people. Why? Because Mahatma Gandhi said, an eye for an eye leaves the world blind. Thank you.